Mike Dell's World number 412 for November 6th, 2025. And we'll play the theme again because this is sort of a continuation from yesterday's show. I do want to add a couple of things to Front Street before we go on to Union. Front Street, again, is the east-west main drag through downtown Traverse City, and then there's a north-south from the Bay up to 8th Street or so, maybe a little past 8th Street. But a couple things I forgot to mention is the Beetle Building. And the Beetle Building, it might seem funny, it might seem strange that I call it that, because probably nobody else does. Although, if you look at it, it's sort of molded right in the top, says the Beetle Building. I don't know why. But when I was a kid, the bottom floor of the Beetle Building was a big boy restaurant. Yeah, right there in downtown Traverse City, a big boy. And it was that for quite a while, and apparently they got a offer they couldn't refuse, and they ended up moving. Actually, I don't know if they moved. They had another store somewhere out by Myers on 31. But anyway, they closed that one down, and an outfit called Mackinac Brewing came in there. And I guess I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. But Mackinac Brewing did exist there. They no longer exist there. And I believe that's probably the only empty storefront in downtown Traverse City right now that I know of. Of course, something might have moved in there since I last looked. But anyway, they're gone. Good riddance. But upstairs, they had a few little shops, offices, whatever you want to call it, of the Beetle Building, and there was a magic store up there called Hocus Pocus. And when I was a kid, I wanted to be a magician, and so I'd go up there and buy the cheap card tricks and whatnot. And anyway, they did move from there over to what's known as the arcade, and that's one of the places I forgot to mention. There was a little mall, sort of indoor mall thing. But, back before that was cool. And it was like a 3-story bunch of shops, inside this cavernous building. And that's where Hocus Pocus moved up to the 3rd floor of the arcade. And down in the basement of it was Good News Guitar. It was a really cool guitar store and banjos and any stringed instruments and everything. So anyway, and we'll get back to another music shop that's iconic, or was back in the day, when we get to Union Street. So anyway, that was the finish up for Front Street. I'm sure I missed all kinds of things, but hey, this is kind of a trip down memory lane to me. So Union Street is kind of on the west end of downtown on Front, and it crosses fronts north to south. Starts at the Bay, at the open space where the what used to be the old Morgan McCool plant. Morgan McCool was a fruit processor. I guess most famous for Mott's apple juice or applesauce, or maybe both. But Mott's when it came to apples. They also processed a whole bunch of cherries. And anyway, Morgan McCool, they had like 3 or 4 huge buildings around town, a little bit further east on Front Street, where we call that, Front Munson, whatever, where it goes out to be a 5-lane highway and all that. A little further down, they had a freezer building. And anyway, when Morgan McCool, I think they got bought out by some bigger company and closed down, Morgan McCool donated that, or Mr. Morgan donated that land to the college. And I think I'm going to do another episode just about Northwestern Michigan College, because they got some pretty cool programs there. But the plant downtown was right on the waterfront. Right next to it was Clinch Park Zoo and Marina. But this big greenish, huge factory building was sitting right on the waterfront there. And right next to it was a big coal-fired electrical plant. Traverse City Light and Power had their big coal plant there. But they donated that to the city of Traverse City, and they plowed that over and made what's called the open space. And just as it sounds, it's an open space. It's also kind of the headquarters of the National Cherry Festival every year in end of June, beginning of July. So that's kind of where the main attraction is. And they even set up a movie screen out there, and they set up a concert venue out there. In fact, I saw Weird Al Yankovic there on the open space years ago. They used to have free concerts. Now they're not free, but if you're walking around downtown, you can certainly hear it. So you can listen for free. You just can't go in and sit down. But anyway, that's the open space on the bay right there on West Grand Traverse Bay. And it's also one of the better spots to watch the air show, but it's really crowded. So we usually go a little bit west of there on the beach, or sometimes we take the boat out and watch it from the boat. That's kind of fun. Haven't done that in a few years. So anyway, at Union Street, as you go a little bit further north, there's really not much on that first block from the bay, other than there's a huge apartment building there now. There really wasn't a lot there to begin with, kind of open. I think there might have been a gas station and a drive-through bank for the Fifth Third Bank that's on the corner there at front. And then on the other side is just a whole bunch of parking lots. The river runs right behind the buildings, and then on the north side of the river is all parking, city parking. And we haven't built too many parking decks yet. We have one, two downtown now, or maybe three. I don't remember now. But this is just, street level parking and, just a flat parking lot. But it goes for 3 blocks, so it'll hold a lot of cars for sure. But once you get past Front Street, there's a building kind of on the right-hand side that there's a restaurant in there. I don't remember what was in there, but that building also caught on fire sometime in the 70s. It's right across the street from that hardware store building that burnt and then got remodeled, rebuilt, whatever. But this one originally was a 3-story building, and when they after the fire, it was only a 2-story building. But it's still there. Again, there's a little cafe in the basement of it, or on the street level of it, called The Dish, or I think it's still there. A friend of mine started that years and years and years and years ago, and it's long since been sold 2 or 3 times, but I believe it's still a restaurant, and I believe it's still The Dish, but I'm not sure. I don't pay that much attention when I drive through there, to be honest with you. But if you go just a little further, you end up on State Street. State Street is another east-west road that parallels Front Street. And back in the day, that was one way going west to east, and Front Street was one way going east to west. And at either end, there was kind of a circular turns, and that's where we would go cruising. We would cruise Front Street and then swing around on State, run down State 3, 4 blocks, 5 blocks, and back to Front Street. So that was a big deal in the early 80s. Cruising. So that's where we did that. And on the corner there was a tire shop, and I don't remember what the tire shop was called, but it was there for many, 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 many years, and then it got sold out, and I think it was a gas station too. But anyway, it got sold, and now there's a 3 or 4-story bank building there. I think it's I don't remember what it's called, Michigan Bank, or I don't remember, but it's not that memorable. But along that same block was a little tiny store music shop, Mel G's Music Shop. And those of us band kids, that's where we got our instruments. That's where we got our sheet music, mouthpieces, reeds if you played woodwinds. And, Mel, just a little guy and very, old school store proprietor. It was just him. And anyway, good old Mel G's was there until he retired, I want to say in the late 80s. And then after that, he, would hang around with the marching band in high school, and would, assist the band director. And, it wasn't a pest. He was, good guy. And used to go have breakfast with him once in a while at a little restaurant on 8th Street called Rounds Circle Inn. And it's literally a round restaurant, or at least the main part of the building's round. It's got little wings off of it too, but the main part of the restaurant's round. And at one time it was called the Circle Inn, but now it's called Rounds, which I guess is sort of the same thing. Anyway, and they're still there, still same old place. Kind of reminds me of Stacy's a little bit. You don't have to check yourself out on the cash register, but the cash register is just about as old. And I don't think it's changed much over the years, which is fine. There's a lot of regulars in there. But every once in a while, I'd go in there and Mel would be sitting up at the counter and I'd sit next to him, talk to him, because I said I was a band geek. And that was the place for breakfast. They still open really early. I think they open at 5 in the morning, something like that, or 4:30. I don't know. They always seem to be open. If I end up getting up early and having to go somewhere, I can usually drive by Rounds and they're open. But that's not downtown. That's over in a area of town called Eastfield. But anyway, so that was Mel G's. There was a pizza place that us kids would hang out in. You're probably sensing a theme on this series of podcasts, but I always like to go where the video games were. And there was a pizza place called Papa J's, and in the back room they had an arcade, and we would hang out at Papa J's, and that was just the place, There was one over by the high school too. I think I talked about that when I was talking about that other building over there. But used to play video games in there, and then across the street from that area of, kind of between Front and 7th Street is kind of the bar zone now. Union Street Station was there. That's a pretty famous place. And then there was another bar called Bill's Dills. And those two were really the only two right there on that block. And Bill's Dills closed down sometime in the 90s. And but the cool thing about Dills was they used to do karaoke in the back room. They had a big kind of stage area, and there was also a group called Song of the Lakes that used to play in there all the time. I played their music on this show a long time ago. And you might not remember that, or you might not have been listening back then. But if you go back, you'll from several years ago, I used to play some of their music, Song of the Lakes. But the karaoke lady there, the fabulous Laura, and she's a friend of my wife's. She moved to California, several years ago. She comes back and does one karaoke at one of the places. I think maybe Union Street Station, just up the street from where Dills was. But I forget. She does one karaoke thing a year back here in Traverse City. But my wife had a statue of her. I don't know where in the hell she got it, but a statue of her that was probably, 2 feet tall. And anyway, we give that to another friend of ours who opened a hotel up in East Jordan, and he was also a friend of Laura's. So we gifted that to him because really didn't have a place for it, but it was still kind of cool. And then currently, that stretch between Union Street and where Dills was is affectionately called the Double Wide. And it's a couple other bars that are literally right next to each other. In fact, they're the same business. I don't know why they have the two different names. And I can only remember one of them, Dillinger's being one of them, but there's another one literally the next building over, and they got a doorway in between. It's the same business, but everybody calls that the Double Wide. So you got Union Street, the Double Wide, and that whole section of Union Street is kind of the bar scene. Although there's some bars along Front Street now as well. I think there's one in Radio Center that's pretty popular. I don't know, a few more scattered about Front Street, but going a little further up Union Street is Brady's Bar, and Brady's has been around as long as I can remember. And they haven't changed a whole. I guess they've remodeled and everything, but the outside looks the same as it did in the 70s and 90s and whatnot. And, it's just a good old local bar. Got a good restaurant attached to it, or, part of it. And, it's a really cool old bar. And they used to have, and they don't anymore, I found out, but they used to sell bluegill, bluegill fish. Yeah, you don't get that hardly anywhere anymore, but it was one of my favorite things there when they had it. And so, but that's called Old Town, that whole stretch there. I don't know if that was the original settlement of downtown Traverse City or what. I don't know all the history of that. And then there was at 8th Street, Union and 8th, there's what you would think would be the perfect place for 4 gas stations. And that's back in the day what was there, or 3 gas stations. And then where one of the other gas stations would be on a corner was the Dairy Queen store. And it was one of those walk-up Dairy Queens, wasn't, didn't we talk about Dairy Queen a couple of days ago? Anyway, but that was the original Dairy Queen in town. And at one point they had a trampoline, sunk into the parking lot that you could jump on and whatnot. And that was a little before my time. There was a guy that was jumping on that and ended up breaking his neck and was paralyzed pretty much from the neck down. And he learned to paint with his mouth. And he was a pretty famous artist around here for quite a while. And so famous, I don't remember his name. It's terrible. But anyway, that was one of the claims to fame there. The other one was my dad's first job. Was he worked at the Dairy Queen there. And even, not too many years ago, he got to play with a self-serve machine at one of those smorgasbord restaurant things, and he could still do that Dairy Queen twist on the top of an ice cream cone, soft serve cone. So anyway, and there was 2 gas stations, or another gas station that's still not a gas station, but they're a mechanic shop. And then where I guess there was a guy named Corky that had a gas station there across the street. That's a bank now. But so, all those corners, and I'm sure this is pretty common throughout the country, is there would be corners where there'd be 2 or 3 or 4 gas stations at an intersection. And we had a couple of those in town, I think 2 or 3. Front and Division, US 31, 37, at one point had, I think it was 4 gas stations there. The last one being Union 76. Actually, Speedway's still there. That used to be the total station. And then Union 76 was across the street, and that's now a CVS drugstore. And then the other corner where the Shell station was is a hand surgery office. And there's another bank on the one corner there. A lot of banks, a lot of drugstores. Anyway, not a big deal. Also along that same stretch was a City Bike Shop. And I remember that specifically because They used to, it was a big old pointed roof, and at the very top they had a bicycle, and they were a Schwinn dealer back when Schwinn was a respected brand. Now they're, it's just a generic brand along with Huffy and all the others that are sold at big box stores. But this was a Schwinn dealer. And I remember buying my first and second bicycle from that dealer. I bought a Schwinn Varsity 10-speed back, I think it was in 1974 for $140. That was a lot of money back then. But I rode the hell out of that bike. But every year I would bring it into City Bike Shop, and they'd tighten up the spokes and grease everything. And, every once in a while I have to change some brakes or a pedal or rewrap the handlebars or something. But I rode the hell out of that bike for, quite a few years. Now, when you're a kid, quite a few years might actually only be 3 or 4. But no, I had that all the way up until I was in high school, and rode it to quite a bit, actually. So, but the City Bike Shop it still exists. It moved. It's over more closer to Eastfield now, and they don't sell Schwinn anymore. They sell other highfalutin bikes. But and then there was this Fivensons, and this was not a business that I would normally do it. They sold restaurant equipment and other industrial type food service stuff. And only reason I remember it is they had the goofiest commercials on TV, on local TV. Mickey Fivenson, and they were just very memorable and funny commercials. And but they were right there near City Bike Shop there along Union Street. But anyway, sorry to reminisce for 2 episodes and almost an hour between the two. But if you've made it this far, I commend you, and I'm glad you're staying subscribed to Mike Dell's World, even though I am haphazardly missing. But for the rest of this month, you're going to get dailies. Maybe not this extensive, but you're going to get dailies for NaPodPoMo. And be sure to go check out napodpomo.org. And see what all the other hype is about. They even have a master feed where you'll get mine along with a bunch of other feeds, and you can just see what these podcasters are doing for National Podcast Post Month. It's cool. I don't know, it's a little feather in your cap. It's another thing I can throw on my website saying, I did it. I did 30 episodes in 30 days. And I have done it before, and I'll probably attempt to do it again. But until tomorrow, and what am I going to talk about tomorrow? I think I have it wrote down even. I'm not going to keep repeating myself here, but I think I'm going to do something aviation related. We'll see. So stay tuned. Catch me later.